fireman
Yeah.
on September 11th?
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Is he going away?
No. Anyone here know anyone that fireman there?
Mm-mm.
Does anybody know a fireman who passed in New York on September 11th?
Mm-mm. I don't.
Oh, boy. No thanks.
Mhm.
I
See, this one, he's got light hair, he's white,
Mm.
he's got broad shoulders. I think he's the one that a body fell and hit him,
Ah.
killed him. I think it's that one.
Mm.
Oh, I feel a connection here.
It's hard to tell. We've got family that lives in New York. I mean,
That's true,
we,
that we don't know.
yeah. So it's hard to tell if there might be a connection there somewhere.
I don't think it's us.
Okay.
Did Tom know those firemen?
I say there's somebody just right on top of me, not that I've ever heard of. But I
Ask
was
him, there's some
wondering.
connection there.
Okay, okay, because I'm feeling it a little bit myself unless it's just coming off of you.
No.
Wasn't
No.
sure.
Ask him if he knew someone that went there to help
Okay.
or something. There's some connection.
Or maybe he knows somebody at work, so I'll tell him.
Okay, that, just went there to go help.
Okay.
There's some
If you,
connection.
if you happen to
Because
get
they're having a hard time, the one that's here,
Okay.
thinking about what they saw and what they felt. Oh, boy, this is really good.
If it seems to be letting you go, you're talking better.
Feel better, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that makes it difficult to lead into what I want to talk about. But that's spiritualism for you. Sometimes you just don't know what spirit's going to come through or what they're going to say.
And we watched yesterday several of those shows.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Okay.
because you're learning more.
Yeah. But what I wanted to talk about today, how to start? I'll start with a funeral. Odd way to start, I know. Wait, I can't decide which is better. If you're completely blurry or slightly blurry. I guess I'll go slightly blurry. I think my prescription ran out. I've always had a hard time at funerals. Some of you already know this, and you know the reason why. I mean, it's very difficult for me to go to a funeral and feel sad for the loss of a loved one when they're standing right there wanting to chat with me. You know? So, I know funerals are supposed to be, for the most part, somber occasions where we're remembering the dear departed. But I was at one funeral one time when the dear departed was saying, "What's that blinkety blink doing here?" How do you stay somber with that?
That's true.
And besides which, I'm a spiritualist. I've got a different attitude about things. And it extends into our church. Recently, I was looking up prayers of other religions, mostly Christian prayers, a few Jewish, one or two Muslim, and I gotta tell you something, they are some of the most depressing things I've ever read. Because most of them are talking about, "Dear God, I know I'm worthless, but with your guidance, I can do better. I know that we live in a world full of sin and corruption and disease, and everything is miserable and horrible and terrible, and but with your strength, I'll get through it all." I mean, when it was line after line after line of that. You're worthless, you're horrible, you're terrible, and the place you live in stinks too. And these were the uplifting prayers. Because some of the rest of them, you know, these ones at least said, I know I'm worthless, but with you I can. So there's a little something positive there. Some of them was, you're terrible, 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 and God is wonderful. Holy cow. I could never do that. I'd be arguing every week with God. I'm not worthless. How dare you tell me I'm worthless? At least arguing with the minister, I guess. But some of this, well, all of this goes back to ancient days, where people decided that the world that the gods lived in is pure. We lived in a corrupted world. So anything that comes from a corrupted world has to be corrupt, right? It even shows up in Judeo-Christian Islam. And I say it that way because Islam has the same roots as Judeo-Christian roots. God got mad. God threw Adam and Eve out into a horrible world where they will be made to suffer. And not only them, but all of their generations to come. But he's a God of love. He's not just going to punish the wrongdoers. He's going to punish every single one of their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, their great-great-grandchildren, their great-great-great-great. To the thousandth generation, if necessary, he's going to punish you all by making you live in this terrible place. It got worse when the Protestant Reformation came along. Oh, if you read about these people, boy. These people would take over Catholic churches, usually through violence, and then go through them, smash out all the stained glass windows, paint over all the frescoes on the walls, destroy all of the images of anything in there, burn the paintings, and paint everything white. Because they believe that there should be no beauty or frivolity in a church. A church was a place you went to humble yourself before God and beg for forgiveness for daring to be born into this world of corruption, and pain, and misery. It is from them that we get our attitudes about churches in America. We've changed some of it. I mean, even the Protestant churches you go into aren't just painted white. But the attitude. We're still a very Puritan nation. Because see, the attitude is that church is a place of somberness. You're supposed to go in, sit down, shut up, except for where we tell you to yell an amen or something. And quietly contemplate your worthlessness. And if you're not aware of your worthlessness, pray with me. I'll tell you. That was the Puritan attitude. Everything about them was bland. Their clothing, their society, in their churches. Now, we have sort of blasted past that bland Puritan attitude when it comes to clothing. I mean, yes, right now I'm wearing brown and white, and they would love that. So the pinstripe they may not like, that's gaudy. But normally if you would run into me, I'm wearing Hawaiian shirts. And they wouldn't like that. And then when it comes to a bland society, well, we rammed a stake through the heart of that and buried it decades ago. But when it comes to churches, now there is a difference between a church being a place of quiet contemplation and meditation. But that's not the attitude. The attitude is somber. And to tell you the truth, this flies in the face of human nature. See, the puritanical way of doing things, I started with Martin Luther in the 1500s. For those of you who don't know, Martin Luther was a Catholic. He was a Catholic monk. He was an extremely devoted Catholic monk. He wrote papers about how great it is to be a Catholic and how special it is. And then one day his abbot decided to send a mission to the Vatican. Martin Luther lived in Germany. They traveled to Rome. And when he got to Rome, he was thrilled. He was looking forward to this. It had been a dream of his to make a pilgrimage to Rome. And he especially wanted to get there so he could draw a lot of the images that he'd heard about so much of. And so, while the mission was in the Vatican meeting with the Pope, he was given permission to travel around the city and look at things. And he made sketches, and he made notes, and he learned. He learned that the people in the street are starving while bishops are riding around in gilt-covered carriages, wearing rubies on their fingers large enough to feed most of Rome. He discovered that the Pope had a wife. Shh. That was an open secret. Nobody was supposed to talk about it. He had kids too. Of course, this also was the Pope who blackmailed, what's his name? Good, brain shut down. Michelangelo to do the Sistine Chapel, and the only Pope in history to literally lead an army into war. And Martin Luther looked at all of this and got disgusted. He saw the opulence, he saw the decadence, he saw how disconnected the church leaders were from the average people, and he went back home and he started writing about that. And funny enough, a pope that led his people into war didn't take that very well. So he threatened to excommunicate him. Martin Luther said, save your breath. I quit. And from him grew the Protestant movement. You have to understand that the first part of Protestant is protest. That's what it was, the protest against the decadence he saw in Rome. And that's why they went to the far other extreme. No fancy clothes, no jewelry, no decorations, no gilt-covered carriages. And when you go into the church, you sit. In the Catholic Church, they have what today is referred to as the Catholic aerobics. Sit, stand, kneel, pray, sit, stand, kneel, pray, over and over again. None of that. You just sit and quietly listen. That was in the 1500s. But you go back further in history, and really actually everywhere else in the world in the 1500s, people were behaving much differently about their religion. Religious ceremonies always used to involve music. And usually it was everybody. You know, like half the people might have been playing instruments, playing drums, banging tambourines, whatever. They were making music. There was dancing involved. And I don't mean disco. I mean wild gyrations, dancing where you're leaping in the air and you're just getting lost in the moment. They were singing, yes, but you were just singing out. These religious times were everything but somber. They were brash, they were loud, they were fun, they were feasts. People look forward to them. You know, there's an attitude anymore in America, especially of, well, you know, I go on important occasions to church. You know, I went when I got married. I'll go when I get married. Maybe occasionally in between I'll show up on a Christmas or an Easter, you know, something like that. I actually heard somebody once say, I don't have to attend church. The wife handles that for me. You know, there was a time, even once people became civilized and had villages and buildings and stuff, where they would all get together, build a huge bonfire, the music would start playing, and the religious ceremony would go through the whole night. I'm not saying we should do that because, frankly, you know, midnight, 1 o'clock, I'd be... Yeah, maybe not if I'm leaping and dancing around a fire and singing and having a good time and they're passing around all kinds of good food and you're having a celebration. And that was the ordinary celebrations. Oh, no. Oh. The big festivals? Those could take days. There are some in places that could last a whole week. We do have remains of it left in our society. That does show up in a couple of places. Just before Easter, just before Lent starts, they have Fat Tuesday. In New Orleans, it's called Mardi Gras. And in Brazil, it's Carnival. But that's what they did. Dancing and singing and having a grand time. It was a massive party. It still remains. The second one that remains in our year, it's called New Year's Eve. That used to be a religious holiday. Actually, that used to be the end of a week-long religious holiday. It would start at about the solstice and go on for about a week. They partied. And what they were doing was celebrating life. That's especially true of New Year's. The idea of the solstice being the longest night of the year, they always had the feeling that the sun dies on the solstice, the winter solstice. When the sun goes down, it is dead. And they spend the whole night watching the night sky, and this was a quiet time. Watching the night sky and looking to the east for a light in the east that will tell them that the sun has been resurrected. So of course you spend the night quietly, because if that sun doesn't come up, that's the end of the world. It's the end times. So they would sit around and they would wait and they would watch. And this, by the way, is a practice that is common everywhere in the world, which is why we have such similar religious stories everywhere in the world. And they would sit and they would watch. And when the first rays of the sun started coming up, party time. And it was a party that could last for a week in places, because they were celebrating the resurrection of life. And not just the sun was representative of all life. All life resurrects. All life comes back. All life is immortal. Most of their end time stories, by the way, weren't really end times. They were end times for that time period. And then a new age would start, and they'd wait for the end time of it. So even the end time had a period where everything resurrects. And they celebrated. And we've reduced it to an evening and secular. Religion's been ripped away from it. Has nothing to do with religion, that's a secular holiday. It was all about life. Easter, that was the other big celebration. That is when Fat Tuesday occurs, which I've always thought was just such ironically hilarious, that just before they go into Lent, where they have to give something up, they debauch themselves. And originally, Easter was a celebration. In this case, it was a celebration of a goddess. Goddess Easter, Eos, Aurora, Isis, Ishtar, some of the names. In some places, she was the goddess of the springtime, but in most places, she was the goddess of plants. Because what happens every spring? The plants resurrect. They come back to life. That's what they were celebrating. When the first new buds start appearing in the springtime, party time. It's time to start celebrating, because the goddess has come back to life. The most famous version of this comes from the Greeks, Persephone. She fell in love with and married Hades. But her mother, who was the goddess of plants, was angry with her, and she refused to let plants grow in the springtime. People started starving, and they prayed to the gods, you've got to do something. So Zeus went down to Hades, his brother, and said, you've got to let Persephone out. Demeter is letting everything die. And Hades says, I don't want to. They bargained and dickered, and they came up with a deal. Every fall, Persephone dies and goes to live with her husband, Hades. And every spring, she resurrects and goes to live with her mother. That's what they were celebrating. Life. That life goes on. It was always a joyous celebration too. Easter actually occurs later. And Easter, boy, still contains all of its pagan roots. Even to the day that it hits on. You have to wait for the spring equinox, then the first full moon after that, then the first Sunday after that is Easter. Grandma?
She's good.
I bet she's out of, I don't know if she's out of fuel. I thought I just replaced it.
I thought you did too.
Explain why you call it grandma.
We've got her ashes in the,
No,
no,
we
we
don't.
don't. No, we don't. We bought it in honor of her. She was a minister of the church, and when she passed over, we bought it in honor of her. The church did.
She gone?
It's out of fuel. Okay, I'll have to get more later.
She gonna get you.
Resurrect.
Yes. It's very symbolic of what I'm talking about. But, yeah, she'll get us. She's here today anyway, she probably will get us, so. But see, that's what ancient people did. They celebrated. Every religious occasion was a celebration. It was joyous. It was about life, and it was thanking God for life. It was never supposed to be somber. We are flying in the face of history, genetics, human nature, call it what you want. 140-some thousand years of celebrating life, and in recent years, religion has made it a terrible thing that you have to escape from. You got to work and work and work to get to heaven because you got to get away from this place. Even in Hinduism, you don't want to get back on the wheel and come back here. No, you want to go to Nirvana, the place of perpetual bliss. And that's why we laugh and joke. Because we're giving you that old-time religion. The idea that life is something you celebrate, you enjoy. You look for all of the great things that are going on in the world. Yes, there are September 11th, when incredibly horrible things happen. And you can focus all of your life and all of your attention on that moment. Some people will. Even if you didn't go through something like that, some people will focus just on the bad things that happen in their life. And they miss all the great stuff. Well, they go through it, they live it, they may laugh and have fun while it's happening, but the moment it's done, it's forgotten. If you are 99% healthy, celebrate that. If you're 90% healthy, 80%. If you're alive, celebrate that. And there's where spiritualists look at things differently. We don't talk to the dead. We talk to the living here and on the other side. If you're alive, celebrate it. And what that means, if you wake up this morning and you're living here, celebrate that. If you wake up this morning and you're living on the other side, celebrate that. Because you're alive and you celebrate life and you thank God for that life. And I'll have a chance to walk directly up to her and say, Grandma, why did you put it out right in the middle of my talk? laughter now. But whether you can easily communicate with spirits or not, every morning you wake up, wherever it may be, thank God for that life. Look for the blessings that are in life. And if you can't find them, make them. If there is nobody telling jokes, tell one. Create laughter. If there's nobody singing, sing. Do I have to quote the Carpenters? Does it matter if you're not good enough? At least I'm not singing it. Yet. You know, I don't care if people think I'm weird if I suddenly start singing. I'm enjoying life. And to tell you the truth, hopefully I will be part of their story someday. I was walking down the street and this nut just started singing Carpenter tunes. Well, I'm more likely to do Elvis Presley, baby. But you're creating fun, you're creating laughter, you're creating joy. You're bringing it into your life by making it yourself. If there is no silly people in your life, be it. I live that one. Can I have an amen, Sister Sherry? That's what religion is supposed to be. Religion was never meant to tear you down. Religion was supposed to lift you up. It was supposed to make you feel great about life. It was supposed to help you celebrate. It was supposed to help you get through the bad times by giving you strength and comfort and laughter and joy and song. A lot of the shaman and medicine men of ancient cultures were really doing religious practices. And a lot of their medicine would be to come in singing and dancing and playing instruments. Because part of what they were trying to do is bring you up. Make you feel better. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what church is supposed to be about. I've got some instruments in the back. We're going to dance. Well, I tell you what, if we did start doing that, and if you came to church every Sunday and danced as much as you could, I bet you we'd start conquering the obesity problem in our country.
That's true.
Especially if they danced the way people did in ancient times. Jumping around, wild gyrations.
We still do.
Wait a minute, we're back to Elvis, aren't we? Anyway, that would work for me. I'll put on Hound Dog and we'll all have a good time. That's what it's supposed to be. We got into this trap a few hundred years ago that religion is supposed to be somber. No. It's supposed to teach you to celebrate. And it's supposed to have really big celebrations and joys and happiness and fun and festivals. Been thinking in recent years that that's what spiritualism lacks. We don't have any big celebrations. Not of our own. That's really hard to do. I mean, we don't have any great religious leader from the past that we worship.
You.
Wow, that was mean. We don't have any holy book that lays out important moments in our history. We don't have any holy sites that we make pilgrimages to. We'll come up with something to celebrate, I'm sure. There's my birthday. Tough crowd. There are things to celebrate, but most importantly, there is every day to be celebrated. Like I said, start every morning off with thanking God when you wake up. When you truly, fully wake up. I mean, if you're like me, every 9 minutes when the snooze alarm goes off, I wake up. So, you know, God, I think we get sick of every 9 minutes hearing thanks for the day.
Especially when it goes on for hours.
So when you wake up, thank God for the day. Before you go to sleep, thank God for the blessings that happened in your day. Thank God for the day and the life for all of your family, your friends, your loved ones, here and on the other side. Thank God for the blessings that have been brought into all of their lives as well. You start and end your day with giving thanks and looking for the blessings. You start changing how you view all of life.